Welcome to our podcast, Ketchup with GBS. And our first ever guest in the podcast is nobody less than Deepa. There's Deepa. Hey, Deepa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Serge. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, and you're the first one.
Yes.
Great, the pilot episode. So tell us something about yourself. No, talk a little bit about your history. Where are you from, for example?
Okay, I'm from India. I'm from a city that you're very familiar with, Bangalore. That's where I did all my education, came to the US to work, and have been since working with multiple companies in the US. Primarily have focused in the areas of operations, transformation, and strategy. So
all right.
that's
everything.
That's it.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you joined Kraft Heinz a couple months ago.
Yes, I did. And you were a big reason for that. I have to give you kudos about being very direct and informative during my interview process. And I felt that this was the right time to come into Kraft Heinz because of the strategy the business has, not just for this year, but what was the growth plan. And we also got to share about, talk about what can we be doing in GBS that is going to be different and run and enable our business differently. So that's really what motivated me to come to Kraft Heinz. And of course, the move to Chicago was the icing on the cake.
That's great. Literally icing.
Yes.
So tell us something more about Kraft Heinz. Why did you join Kraft Heinz? Because you were before with some media companies, I think?
Yes, I was with Warner Music before I joined Kraft Heinz. What really excited me about this role is the fact that I can bring all of my 23 years of experience into this role. So starting with operations, right? We work very closely with our partners, suppliers in Genpact and Accenture. So how do we enable them to think about operations differently, but also think about how do we bring today's technology and today's ways of working so that our people actually can do meaningful work and do something that makes them happy and makes life delicious, like we say.
All right. Which is your favorite product? Any product here? Or
nothing here, but I'm a great fan of the Primal Kitchen mango and jalapeno sauce.
Of course.
That just goes with everything. So I absolutely love it. And coming from India, mango, you have to like
the
mango.
bar is high for the mango taste.
It is. So I really love that as a product.
All right. Talk a little bit more about yourself. So what are some of your hobbies? What do you do outside of work and your career?
Okay, so outside of work, I have twin girls. They're 13 years old. So you can imagine the challenge that comes with that. When I look at that, being at work is a piece of cake. But they and I are very much into K-pop music nowadays. So that is something fun that I personally love doing. It really builds the bond with them, but also helps me stay active because they make me do all these K-pop challenges and K-pop dances. So that's something I love doing. I love traveling and I love cooking. So that's where I spend my time.
Any specialty dish?
I make a mean biryani. So yes, very, very like the English mean biryani. But Preeti and I will most probably have a competition very soon about whose biryani tastes the best.
I'm happy to taste.
To be the judge?
Biryanis.
Yes.
Hyderabadi biryani?
Hyderabadi, of course. Hyderabadi dum biryani.
Perfect. Good. So Deepa, talk us a little bit through why you're working in GBS. Why the GBS space?
So Serge, this is a very interesting question, right? Because in my career, I've worked across multiple functions, business units, but I believe in GBS, we get the line of sight across the business. So let's look at North America, right? My team handles everything from sales, order management, supply chain, invoice to cash, procure to pay, data management organization, and hire to retire, which touch our employees. Where else will you see this expanse of work that you can contribute to under one umbrella? The second thing is, to me, it is a huge asset to work in a place like this because it gives me an ability to work across different teams. As that is what I desire, right? I could very well be helping our HDR teams and enabling our employees. But if I'm more business minded, maybe I want to go work in sales or I want to go work in order management. And given the amount of work we do for the businesses, we sit on a lot of data. To me, and this is one of the things that I've been working with my team on this year, is to understand how do we take that treasure of data, make it business intelligence, and give it back to the business so they can action on it, right? And this is something you've spoken to us about multiple times around how do you see GBS evolving into a digital yes of the future. And I think we have a tremendous opportunity to be in this group and actually drive that and make our business successful.
What would be like the top achievement or ambition for you this year to achieve? When you look back in December, this was an amazing year.
So I believe in simplicity. For me, getting the fundamentals right and getting our governance right this year is going to enable us to get speed next year, right? So how do we make sure that we pay our employees on time, every time without missing, right? How do we make sure that we touch every invoice that comes in and make the payments on time without having to have any kind of vendor relationship or vendor management issues? How do we do all of that? How do we make sure that the data that sits in our systems, one, is accountable, is reconcilable, and is secure so that we can actually drive speed next year? I know it sounds very simple when I say fundamentals and governance. You can say it's a lot of work.
That's the foundation, no, to create an amazing GBS.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're right. So we need to have like a foundation, be able to build upon as a GBS. Your foundation needs to be stable. But GBS is more than just running the operations, right? Nowadays, we expect a lot from GBS organizations in terms of driving value, for example, transformation. What's your view on that? Where do you see GBS evolving over the next couple of years?
So, GBS in the industry always has this connotation that we are the back office. We are people hidden behind the screens doing the work. I really want our teams to be out there in the forefront. I want our businesses to turn to us and say, let's go ask GBS, what does that insight look like? How should I drive my consumer behavior? Let's ask, how should I place my trade promotion so that we are making additional revenue and we are enhancing revenue? I want those questions to come to our GBS. But for us to do that, I think there are two things that we have to do. One, clearly enable our people to get out of the day-to-day transactional work, to get the breadth, to be able to say, I know more than what I'm doing. I'm the subject matter expert in this area. So how do I think that this business should work, or this function, or this process should work? And how do we bring that? And how do we enable our people to voice those so that we can hear them, we can action it, and we can make that happen for the teams in the business? The second thing I would say is, how do we enable our teams with streamlined ecosystem, right? And I don't want to say technology because that changes every day, as you know, right? But what is that ecosystem that we want our people to work in? It is like my colleague Alina is driving customer experience, right? How do we think about customer experience and then build our ecosystem of process and technology that matches that customer experience? So that's how I'm thinking about this year, sir.
Right. So a lot of digital, right?
Yes.
It's a very fancy word. I know I'm dropping a term there, but GBS is a lot of technology transformation.
Agreed.
Right. Let's talk a bit more about leadership, because another thing that I find amazing about working in GBS is that we're working with big teams, right? Teams that are spread across the world, different types of cultures. In GBS. So let me ask differently. How are you as a leader in that type of context?
I get very excited. The reason being, I get to actually work with multi-generational teams, right? I have folks on my team who've done this job for 27 years. And then I have people, like you mentioned, who practically walked in the door and have shared some fantastic ideas. To me, when I look at that, it is an amazing ability and opportunity to learn. And what are we as leaders if we don't learn on a daily basis? For me, leadership is about that, right? How do you pay forward? How do you give it back? I always remember this quote from my dad. He always used to say, remember the people on your way up because you will meet them on your way down. So I have to be very conscious every day that I'm being humble in my shoes, yet being assertive, right? We as leaders, and I know you will push us for this, is how do we make the decisions, but data driven with people in mind so that we are not taking callous decisions which impact people adversely, right? So that to me is the essence of leadership. That's what I think I bring to the table. But I get excited every single day coming to work and just learning new things. CPG is a whole new world for me. But so far, I think kudos to my team. They've been very patient and very able to get me along that learning guide and path to be able to say, okay, we'll explain things to you. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
Talk me through that expression from your father a bit more.
So my dad used to say, always remember the people on your way up because you will meet them on your way down.
Yeah.
What he basically meant is if you're going to be disrespectful to people when you grow in an organization, in your friendships, outside work, wherever, when you had a downturn, which we all have, life is up and up, right? You will meet the same people. And then how do you want them to reciprocate with you? You cannot expect them to be extremely nice or helpful because you were not helpful when you had the position of privilege, right? So I cherish that a lot and think about it.
How do you apply that? It's kind of don't do to what you wouldn't
do to yourself. Yeah, exactly.
Some examples of how do you practice that? You know, if you manage your team or in your daily life, managing your teams, you have some examples of how do you practice that?
Yeah, so I would say my very first thing is being kind. I know it's a very global word, but again, simplicity, right? That takes practice. Being kind is, for me, showing up to a meeting on time, appreciating that you are in that meeting and you need to give the person the attention to be able to listen to what they're asking of you, what they're sharing with you, right? And then being able to be present. That to me is being kind and being respectful for that person. The other thing that I live by is doing the right thing. Sometimes I will do this like very callously. I will throw stuff and then I'm like, I will catch myself and I'll say, but that's not doing the right thing, right? So I will bend, I will pick it up. Also because that's something I'm role modeling, right? Just like we do with our kids, I feel as leaders, we have to role model. Right? There's enough number of adages for it. Walk the talk, role model, whatever your pick of words are. But to me, that's something that you have to practice and like look at.
That's a fine balance, no? Because be kind, great, until the moment as a leader you need to take a tough decision. Yeah. Or you need to give very tough feedback, right? How do you approach that? Because there's some tough decisions that sometimes you need to take as a manager.
Agreed. And again, is it well thought through from a manager's perspective? So my perspective, have I thought through everything? The second thing is, have I given the other person a chance? We are all human beings. End of the day, we all have our circumstances. Have I been able to be empathetic enough to understand what that is and given that person a chance? And then, yes, end of the day, we run a business. We have to be profitable. We have to do right by the business as well. So we have to make tough decisions, but it is about, have you given the person the chance and have you communicated it as well, right? I personally don't like surprises in my personal life or professional life. Do not like surprises, right? So I would expect the same thing from me as a manager when I have to deal with somebody else. I cannot just surprise them. It has to be something that's thought through.
One of my favorite questions always is there something that you learned in your career and that you would give as a tip to anyone else, right? Something that you learned maybe the hard way or this was an amazing career lesson and I would like to share with everybody because this is something that can help you in your career.
My very first Master Black Belt project, I remember when my quality leader was reviewing it. We were having this review and he was asking me all these questions. And then I had my process owner sitting and like he was also inputting into it. And at some point I got really frustrated. I was like, man, I did all the work. Like you don't even know anything beyond this presentation. You just keep jumping in and trying to take credit for my work, right? And the session went well. I was lined up to get certified. All that was good. But I remember my quality leader tapping me, and his name is A.V. Hari, if any of you know him. He works with HSBC. So I remember he tapped on my shoulder and he said, your work will shine the best if you are able to give other people the credit. To me, that was a very big lesson in my career. And I'm glad I learned it way early in my career, not late, because I believe that is a spirit with which collaboration happens. if I'm always going to think about credit for myself, I'm not going to be able to collaborate, right? But if I'm going to say, I don't mind if it is Elena or Carol or Tasso or Tiago, end of the day, we are a team, then we will do great work, right? So that to me has been, I think, one of the most defining learnings of my career.
Yeah. I love that one, by the way, because I'm a big fan of exactly the same concept, working as one team, supporting each other, having each other's back,
Exactly.
as I always call it. Right? And at the end of the day, if the team gets the credit,
You get the
great.
credit.
And we know who did what, and we can
Yeah,
give somebody
yeah.
individual credit, but it's about what the team achieved. Right? So I always compare with sports.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's about football or hockey or cricket,
Yeah.
whichever sport it is. You need to be team players. Right? You can
Exactly.
be the best Messi or Sachin Tendulkar. No, he's one of the famous cricketers.
Not Serge.
You can be like an amazing player, but if you don't pass the ball or know how to collaborate with other team members, you're not gonna have an amazing team. Right?
Exactly.
So, right.
Exactly.
How do you feel being honored as part of International Women's Day?
I feel honored, no pun intended, but it is like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
My mother was from a working family, and she really reinforced with us the value of education, and I do that with my kids as well. And I know we talk about women's empowerment and being able to be shoulder to shoulder with men in the workspace, but I feel I've been very much empowered by people I've worked for in the past who have really developed my capabilities and enabled meritocracy. And I think, to me, that is really an important thing to pay forward. So I do work with girls in STEAM to make sure that, again, they see that there are other careers that women can focus on other than just it being what we are told, which is maybe technology, maybe you be a doctor or you be an engineer, right? I'm none of those, but I think I have a very successful career. So I feel very empowered and I feel very honored that I'm here today talking to all of you about how you can make a change in your career by being open, taking chances, and moving forward.
And did you see an evolution in the last 23 years?
23 years.
That you're working here in the US, did you see an evolution in terms of diversity in the office and women in senior leadership positions like yourself now? And did you see an evolution in the last 23 years?
23 years.
That you're working here in the US, did you see an evolution in terms of diversity in the office and women in senior leadership positions like yourself?
Absolutely. I would say when I started my career, so this is way back in 2012 maybe, when I was in consulting and we would go to present to leadership, there were days that I was the only woman across the table. And we were presenting to top level, C-level folks in the organization and talking to them about what is the value that we can bring to the table. I remember one such incident where one of the business owners stood up and said, I do not want a 23-year-old telling me how to do my job. Today, when I look around my leadership team or even your leadership team, Serge, I feel like we have a voice, right? It is not just a presence at the table, but we really have a voice. And we all bring our creativity to it. Each one of us in your leadership team and even in my leadership team think very differently. We bring different facets of work and I would say we bring our authentic self to work, right? So we are very different and that shows in the work we do. And I think that, to me, is the biggest shift that has happened. Versus if I look at my career 20 years ago, there was a prescribed way as to how women need to behave at the workplace. So I think that has changed significantly. And I would absolutely be remiss if I do not give men at the workplace an equal amount of credit for making that happen. We are two sides of a coin. So if I'm going to sit there and talk to you about an idea, but you're not receptive to it, then we fail. Right? So thank you for actually enabling us in your team and enabling us within GBS to voice what we think and being able to deliver.
I think the team now that we have is, I think in terms of diversity, amazing.
Yes.
Right? In all types of diversity.
Mm-hmm.
We have gender diversity, great. We have
regional diversity.
People from all different places around the world, different types of backgrounds, different types of education. So great, and actually we have a lot of women in that team that are in very important roles, right? Decision making roles, right,
Yes.
in the team. So that's a big evolution probably versus 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
Did you have any specific, maybe some examples, again, no, for the women watching and also for the men actually, because sometimes as men we might not see the struggles or the additional challenges that you have, right, sometimes in your career. Any tips, learnings for how to cope maybe with bias that from time to time creeps into situations or meetings?
Yes. So I would say the very first thing I would think about is how do you actually ask for help, right? To me, that has been one of the biggest assets in my career is I've not been shy of asking for help. And how do we actually step up to help, right? Like if I go in and say, what can I do for you? The other person is not going to know what to say. But if you say, I know you have been working on this project and I know it has been consuming a lot of your time. And I also know you have other priorities. Would you want me to step in and help you with this? You're defining it a bit better. Right? So I think asking for help in a quantifiable manner, that makes it maybe simpler for people to understand where you're coming from. The other thing I also think about is how do you be open? As women, I think when we are posed with an opportunity, we have a laundry list of things running in our head to say, oh, but that's going to happen now. Then what am I going to do with my kids? What am I going to do with my mom? So I will say for men in lives of women like me and the women across the table and around the globe, it is really great for us to see all of you step up and support us, right? And the reason I'm saying this, you know this, Serge, I have moved to Chicago all by myself, whereas my twin girls and their dad are continuing to stay in New Jersey and they will stay there, right? And it is not an easy job. Now, he's doing the job of being the dad and the mom, right? I would not be sitting here talking to you during this podcast if he wasn't able to step up and do that. To me, that is not just what we should train our sons and nephews on, but it is really something that we should enable our partners, the husbands, spouses, significant others to be able to step up and help us, help with it. But again, our ask has to be clear and we have to have defined that ask, right? Just because he's my husband, I cannot expect him to know what I do.
Yeah, great example. Now, I asked you a lot of questions.
Okay.
Anything you want to ask back?
Okay. What has been your most fun experience within Kraft Heinz in GBS?
My most fun experience in GBS Kraft Heinz. I think we had an amazing evening, even actually a couple of days in December last year when we had our offsite.
I agree. Yes.
Our leadership team offsite in London, where we brought the whole team together, right? Physically spread all over the world. We all came together there in a small office somewhere in London. Great sessions. And then in the evening we went to a party, the office party, the Christmas party in the Shard, of all places. That's one of the amazing things about Kraft Heinz. We have offices in the most unique places around the world. So the Shard is one of those, the Aeon building that we are here. Incredible view from the 75th or something floor. But I think it was a great evening out. We met a lot of people. We had some good beers.
Do you want to talk about the fun that you wanted to do?
Oh, yeah.
You missed the fun jumper.
Yeah, the fun jumpers.
Yeah.
I wore something pretty bling, no? That evening. So
Yes.
for a Christmas party, huh?
It was.
I didn't like the jumpers. The jumpers were a little bit off quality in Christmas shopping there, but the bling vest was actually quite nice.
Yeah, it was very suave. You carried it off really well.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very good. All right. So that's it for the first episode. So thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned. Look at the next episode coming up soon. This was Ketchup with GBS.